You do not need a brand new luxury car to feel like you made it. In fact, that is probably the fastest way to lose money without getting anything truly special back. Because right now, there is a weird corner of the market where full-size premium flagships have fallen so hard in value, they make new cars look overpriced, overcomplicated, and, honestly, a little cheap. We are talking about cars that were built to impress executives, not monthly payment calculators. Serious comfort, serious presence, real engineering. And today, some of them cost less than a nicely equipped new family SUV. The catch is knowing which ones are actually smart buys and which ones will punish you for trying to look rich on a budget. What makes the Genesis G90 such a perfect fit for this list is simple. It delivers the full flagship luxury experience without forcing you to pay for badge prestige. A lot of buyers still shop this class with their eyes first, which is exactly why the G90 took such a brutal depreciation hit. That is your opening. In the North American used market, a clean 2020 to 2022 example usually lands somewhere in the high $30,000 range up into the mid $50,000 range, depending on mileage, trim, and history, which is wild when you remember this was built to compete with cars that asked for far more money new. Under the hood, the one most people should target is the 3.3-liter twin-turbo V6 with around 365 horsepower and an 8-speed automatic. There was also a 5.0-liter V8 early on with roughly 420 horsepower, but this is not the car you buy for speed. That misses the point. The G90 works because it is smooth, quiet, heavy in a good way, and deeply relaxing on the road. Real-world fuel economy is usually around 19 to 23 miles per gallon combined for the V6, depending on how and where you drive. So nobody should walk into this expecting economy car running costs. The real strength here is ambiance. The cabin feels properly expensive, the ride quality is composed, road noise stays low. The seats are excellent, especially for long highway trips, and the styling has enough presence to feel special without screaming for attention. The downside is resale perception and a smaller dealer network than Lexus or the German brands. Some buyers also get nervous about long-term electronics in a flagship sedan, which means you need to inspect one carefully. Check every screen, every seat function, every driver assist feature, the power trunk, the suspension feel, and make sure service history is consistent. On any used luxury car, deferred maintenance is where the bargain disappears. This is the car for the buyer who wants real comfort, premium materials, and executive car presence, but does not care about impressing strangers at a stoplight. And before you buy any big luxury sedan, grab the toolkit and portable tire compressor linked below. Those two things can save you from a very annoying roadside moment. If your priority is smoothness, refinement, and value over sportiness, the Genesis G90 is one of the smartest flagship bargains on the market. The Lexus LS 460 is the car that gives this list its backbone, because this is the one almost nobody has to apologize for putting here. People already trust the LS name, and that matters. When buyers hear Lexus in this segment, they think of build quality, long-term durability, quiet cabins, and fewer ownership horror stories than the usual German flagships. That is exactly why the 2016 to 2017 LS 460 works so well in this video. It is not here because it is obscure. It is here because it is easier to defend than almost anything else in the full-size luxury world. Under the hood, you get a 4.6-liter naturally aspirated V8 paired with an 8-speed automatic. Rear-wheel drive cars make about 386 horsepower, while all-wheel drive versions are a little lower. Fuel economy is not miraculous, and nobody shopping an LS should pretend otherwise. Expect roughly 16 city and 24 highway on paper, with real-world combined driving usually landing somewhere around the high teens if the car is being used like an actual flagship sedan. What makes this car special is not speed. It is the way everything feels expensive, settled, and properly assembled. The doors shut with weight. The seats are built for hours, not errands. The cabin stays calm even when the road is not. This is the kind of car for someone who wants true flagship comfort and reputation, but does not want to roll the dice on a badge that looks exciting in the driveway and empties the wallet in the service lane. That does not mean it is cheap to own. It is still a premium V8 luxury sedan. Tires, brakes, suspension work, and electronic repairs can all cost real money. It is just a smarter used flagship choice than many of its competitors. In today's used market, most decent 2016 to 2017 examples fall somewhere from the mid-20s into the low 30s, with cleaner, lower-mile cars reaching above that. That puts genuine flagship luxury in reach of buyers who might otherwise end up in a brand new car that feels smaller, noisier, and less substantial. But you still need to inspect carefully. Pay close attention to control arm wear, air suspension condition if equipped, brake actuator history, coolant leaks, and whether every luxury feature actually works the way it should. A well-kept LS feels like a long-term relationship. A neglected one still reminds you this was an expensive car when it was new. The G90 was the outsider with a lot to prove. The next one comes from a completely different angle. If this is already changing how you look at the used market, hit the like button. It tells YouTube this kind of honest breakdown actually matters. Also, drop your city in the comments and check the selected products. The Cadillac CT6 is one of those cars that makes you wonder how the market got it so wrong. Because when you see one in person, it looks like money. Long body, real flagship proportions, upscale design, and just enough presence to make a lot of newer luxury sedans feel smaller and less serious. But the resale market never treated it like a true top-shelf executive car, and that is exactly why it belongs here. For buyers who want luxury presence, strong technology, and a premium driving experience without paying the same used market premium attached to more obvious badge choices, the 2019 to 2020 CT6 is a very interesting play. For most buyers, the sweet spot is the 3.6-liter V6 with around 335 horsepower and a 10-speed automatic. That setup gives the car enough power to feel expensive and effortless without turning the whole ownership experience into a science project. There were other versions, including smaller engines and the far more serious CT6V, but for this kind of video, the regular premium trims make the most sense. Fuel economy is respectable for a full-size luxury sedan, with the V6 generally rated around 18 city and 27 highway, and real-world mixed driving usually landing somewhere in the low 20s if the car is driven normally. What makes the CT6 work is not that it is the safest long-term bet on this list, because it is not. Its strength is value. It feels more expensive than the market says it is. The cabin has the right atmosphere, the technology feels properly premium for the era, and on the road, it carries itself like a legitimate executive sedan, not a dressed-up midsize pretending to be one. That is the hook. You get appearance, comfort, and a sense of occasion without paying the same used price premium some rivals still command. In today's market, a lot of 2019 to 2020 examples fall roughly from the mid-20s into the mid-30s, with cleaner, low-mile, higher trims pushing above that. Still, this is where the smart buyer has to slow down. A CT6 should be inspected like a serious luxury car, because that is what it is. Check every screen, every driver assist feature, every camera, every seat adjustment, and pay attention to how the transmission behaves in normal driving. Make sure the service history is there, and do not buy one just because it looks like a bargain from 30 feet away. This car is best for someone who wants an underrated luxury sedan with real presence and is willing to shop carefully to get the right one. It is overlooked, not invincible. And that makes the next car even more interesting, because it takes the value story in a completely different direction. Almost nobody wakes up and says, I am going shopping for a Kia K900 today. That lack of attention is exactly what makes it so interesting. When this car was new, it had the ingredients of a real flagship sedan. Generous size, a richly finished interior, smooth road manners, elegant design, and the kind of quiet, expensive feel buyers usually expect from brands with much louder reputations. But because the market never took it seriously as a luxury status car, values dropped hard, and that is where the opportunity shows up. For 2019 and 2020, every K900 came with a 3.3-liter twin-turbo versus 6, making about 365 horsepower, paired with an 8-speed automatic and all-wheel drive. That is more than enough power for what this car is meant to do. This is not about carving corners or pretending to be a sports sedan. It is about effortless acceleration, calm highway cruising, and that soft, composed flagship character that makes long drives feel shorter. Real-world fuel economy usually lands somewhere around the low 20s combined, depending on traffic and driving style, which is fair for a large luxury sedan with this kind of power. Inside is where the value story really hits. The cabin feels far more expensive than the used price suggests. Materials are rich, the seat comfort is excellent, and the whole car gives off that under-the-radar executive vibe that some buyers actually prefer. It feels like something much more exclusive than the badge would lead people to expect. That is the hidden gem angle here. Nobody looks for it, which is exactly why the smart buyer can sometimes get a deal that makes more obvious luxury badges look overpriced. Still, this is where you have to stay honest. Brand perception is weaker, resale is not going to save you later, and ownership support will never feel as deep as what buyers might expect from Lexus or Mercedes. So inspection matters. Check every electronic feature, every camera, every seat adjustment, and make sure the service history is clean and complete. Pay attention to warning lights, transmission smoothness, and signs that the previous owner loved the discount more than the maintenance schedule. That mistake gets expensive fast. This is the right car for someone who wants comfort, rarity, premium ambiance, and huge under-the-radar value without caring whether the parking lot crowd understands it. And that makes the last car even more fascinating, because it takes this luxury bargain idea and pushes it even further. Picture this for a second. Somebody walks into a dealership and signs for a brand new bare-bones car with plastic-feeling panels, a weak engine, and monthly payments that buy almost no sense of occasion. Meanwhile, for similar money in the used market, there is a Hyundai Equus sitting there with a big V8, a soft ride, real flagship size, and the kind of comfort that makes you question how depreciation got this out of control. That is why this car belongs on the list. Not because it is a perfect recommendation for everybody, but because the luxury per dollar shock here is almost absurd. Power comes from a 5.0-liter naturally aspirated V8, making about 429 horsepower, paired with an 8-speed automatic. Fuel economy lands around 15 city, 23 highway, and roughly 18 combined, which tells you everything you need to know about what this car was built to be. Efficiency was never the mission. Isolation was, presence was, comfort was. On the road, that shows up as a soft, calm, old-school luxury feel that a lot of newer mainstream cars cannot even fake. And then you look at the prices. In today's market, it is not hard to find Equus examples in the low teens, and some higher-mile cars dip even closer to $10,000. That is the part that completely changes the conversation, because now you are not comparing it to used German flagships only. You are comparing it to brand new economy cars and stripped crossovers that feel nowhere near this substantial. That is the value shock. This thing was built to move like a full-size luxury sedan, and now it can cost used compact money. Still, this is where honesty matters. You do not buy an Equus blindly just because the price looks hilarious. Careful shopping matters more here than almost anywhere else on the list. Check every electronic feature, every seat adjustment, every camera, every screen, and every sign of deferred maintenance. Listen for suspension issues, make sure the transmission is smooth, and study the service history like it actually matters, because it does. This is not the flawless ownership certainty pick. It is the outrageous value pick. Best for someone who wants maximum comfort, size, and luxury feel for minimum money, and who understands that a cheap flagship can get expensive fast if the previous owner treated it like a throwaway. That is the trade-off. And honestly, that trade-off is what makes the whole list so interesting. So that is the real takeaway here. You do not always need a brand new car to get a premium experience that actually feels special. In a market full of overpriced new vehicles and forgettable monthly payment machines, these flagship sedans still offer something a lot of modern cars lost: presence, comfort, silence, and a sense that you bought something built to matter. Of course, none of them should be purchased carelessly. A cheap flagship can turn expensive fast if you ignore condition, history, and maintenance. But if you shop smart, inspect carefully, and buy for substance instead of status, these cars can give you far more luxury than a brand new basic car ever will. And honestly, that is what makes them so underrated right now.